Meow everybody, it's Cantonese Cat here, and I just want to spend maybe 15-20 minutes talking about Palantir, how I came up with this crazy fractal right here. The whole idea is that obviously this is a guess, it's not a complete guess, it was more of like an educated guess. If you look at different stocks in the stock market, actually this happens a lot, and a lot of times the distribution pattern can look like the accumulation pattern and vice versa. And each stock kind of has its own personality. If you've been watching, different price action of different stocks, you might be able to pick up some of the personality of the stocks that gives you somewhat of an advantage and somewhat of a better guess in terms of what it's trying to do. But if you look at Palantir, when I was looking down here, I was seeing, hey, it's making kind of like a lower low here, kind of like how it made a lower high, sorry, a higher high here, and they have these channel right there. It looks like it's trying to form this channel right here. So I was wondering whether or not the market maker is just really lazy and they might just end up doing a very similar thing here at the accumulation pattern as it did over in the distribution pattern. And ultimately it turns out to be more or less right. I mean, I thought that this was going to be a little bit of a higher low, but it made a lower low, but that's okay. I thought this was going to bump up a lot faster, but ultimately it took its time, which is okay too. Just gave me a little bit more time to accumulate more than I thought I would, which I guess I don't mind, now looking back at it. Now, what I meant by every stock has its own personality, this is Tesla. This is an all-time chart of Tesla. It spends most of its time trying to roll over, but never did. Roll over and never did. Roll over, but never did. Roll over, but never did. Right. And then in addition to that, it really tries to spend majority of the time kind of forming these weird lower highs and lower low, and then just bumps up from there. He keeps on forming these, weird kind of like, lower highs and lower low, and it just never really rolls over. Same thing over here. It just keeps on making these weird low highs and lower low, but that's kind of what Tesla does, and that's his personality. That's part of the reason why I'm not entirely scared over here, because it spends most of the time looking like it's going to roll over anyway. So when I see it rolling over, I'm like, anyway. So we'll talk more about Tesla maybe some other time. This is Shopify. It likes to do this, and I spotted this kind of pattern. It likes to do like a failed rounded top, and when it fails, found support, it just goes up like crazy. It looks like we might be at a very similar trajectory here too. I spotted this kind of around November, December, and sure enough, it seems to be working out so far. The idea of every stock having its own personality gave me a little bit of confidence that this could be an inverse pattern as opposed to here, whereas here it kind of formed like a semi head and shoulder pattern, and I thought this was going to be forming an inverse head and shoulder pattern, and it's getting pretty close, and turned out that it wasn't that bad of a predictive model. Just to kind of let you know how I continue to look at this, and I kept on seeing this. When I was seeing that, I was like, yes, I'm gonna be like famous, man. This is exactly what I think is gonna happen is happening. But sure enough, it kept on dropping, and it went down to like five something, and former lower, and so be it. You can't win all the time. But what I did see was that it started to have a bullish divergence right around here. What I meant by bullish divergence is price kept going down, but the RSI started to trend up. So this is what I was talking about, price going down. The RSI started to trend up, right? Now, I want to make it very clear, having a bullish divergence doesn't mean that it's bullish. It can make a lower low, and it did, right? Having a bullish divergence just means that the downtrend that it has, that has been very vicious, could be slowing down. There's a deceleration of a downtrend, and it starts the process of a bottoming process. Now, there are a lot of stocks out there that looks like a great deal, but they may not be, because I'm not yet seeing any kind of bottoming process, like having some kind of bullish divergence that at least decelerates the downtrend a little bit. Whereas here, I started to spot this, and I was a little bit more confident in terms of what I was thinking. I think it's going to slow down. Looks like it's forming a base forming behavior, which eventually it is. It did turn out to be an accumulation pattern, and based on the volume, it does make me a little bit more confident that that's the case, because you can see that the buying volume keeps going up, sell volume keeps going down, buy volume keeps going up, sell volume keeps going down, buy volume keeps going up, sell volume keeps going down, and so on and so forth, right? You look at the RSI, it also kind of gives you a generalized trend as well. You can see this whole thing right here, the RSI is just basically overall trending down, right? Once it gets to this point right here, when I made that crazy prediction, since then the RSI has really been trending up, and sure enough, it's becoming a bottoming process, and the downtrend has significantly decelerated, and this is really forming a very nice bottom over here. When it got to this point right here, I saw a huge volume candle right here on the weekly, and I really thought that it was starting to get to the point that it could break out at any time. And this is probably around like May of 2023. And sure enough, just the week after that, that candle it just broke off. And since then, it's been history. Once this whole trend line breaks off, it went on to the raises, right? It went above, and then it really start to consolidate over here, which is not surprising because nothing goes up in a straight line. It needs to cool down, and I thought it was just going to spend maybe quite a few months trying to cool down. I was looking at the horizontal to try to figure out what it was going to do. A couple things identified was that there's 17 seems to be a pretty important level right here, and then around 20 or 21 seems to be a pretty important level right around here. And so it's around this area right here, around 14, 13ish to 14, and I thought it was just kind of going to range between these different areas, and sure enough, it ended up doing that. It ranged mostly between all these three different levels, and I had a kind of like a bullish case, a base case, and a bearish case, and ended up not testing this trend line, which stocks often do after they break out from a trend line. They often go back and tested it, but it didn't end up doing that. It's just kind of range bound here for about 7 months before it broke out. Now, what I meant by the stock's personality is also when I was making this prediction, I thought it was just going to, range around here is going to go up. But as it kept on happening, a lot of people started calling out this around August or September when the market was really starting to get a little bit bearish. And everybody starts seeing this, head and shoulder pattern. Most people start calling it. Some people are smart and saying, hey, look, this head and shoulder pattern is kind of a little bit too obvious. It probably was not going to happen. When I was looking at this, I was like, look, the same thing happened here. You got an inverse head and shoulder pattern here that never really panned out, right? Why is that? Well, because the 20-week moving average was very, very negative sloped right here, and it serves as a resistance. It's going to take a lot of force to try to break through it. And you can see that it even tried to break through it down here, but ultimately failed because it was still downtrending, right? It really started to have like a base run process before this process is being broken. Same thing, right? You look at the stock's personality, it's looking like it's wanting to do the same thing over here, forming a pretty obvious looking, head and shoulders. But the 20-week moving average was really possibly pushing up the price. So I ultimately didn't think that this head and shoulder was going to work out, and I was very vocal about it. And, sure enough, it didn't. Now, when it happened, it ended up bouncing from here. There are a lot of people that got really quiet about the head and shoulder, and some say, yeah, it didn't really work out, but hey, it's cool. And then next thing you know, people start calling it double top over here. Now, mind you, this is the bull market support band, which is consisted of one with the red line right here is actually the 20-week moving average. It's still pointing up, so it's going to provide some support here. So I don't really buy this whole double top idea. If you're talking about a head and shoulder pattern, you're really talking about the target for this. If it breaks down, you're talking about from here to here is going to go from here to there. So a lot of people were making kind of like these like $7-8 kind of price prediction. Same thing here with a double top, right? If you have a double top, then the price target it has to break down this line right here, and then the price target is going to be equal to how far it went up, and it's going to go down that far, right? I just didn't think it was going to happen, and sure enough, it didn't. Obviously, in hindsight, when you're looking through here at this pattern right here, a lot of people are screaming distribution because it looks just like Wyckoff. There's this meme pattern of this Wyckoff distribution. It looks like it's doing exactly that. This could be like the LPSY here. The only problem that I had with this, and I was very vocal about it, was that the entire thing over here looks just like how it did it with accumulation. Buy volume goes up, sell volume goes down, and buy the volume goes crazy, right? Here, same thing. As it breaks out of range, right here, same thing. If you look at the buy volume, it goes up, and you look at the sell volume, it goes down. This really looks like reaccumulation to me. I had confirmation when I was looking at fintel.io. This basically tells you the institution accumulation, how many number of shares the institution were having, and throughout this whole entire process up here, they were buying. This is reaccumulation. I was very, adamant about that. Of course, I can be wrong, but I was pretty adamant about it. Another thing, too, if you look at this thing right here, now you're talking about the bullish divergence down here. You also have a little bit of a hidden bullish divergence here as well, right? RSI was going down, and the base price was going up. This is a hidden divergence type pattern. And this whole reaccumulation process throughout the entire time, the volume just basically consolidating sideways, and it goes down, which is what you expect when it's trying to consolidate. No surprises, right? But because of the divergence, and because I was showing you the volume distribution here, I really thought that this is whole reaccumulation pattern. And because of that, I think it's going to break out of this RSI trend line just like it did before, and it's going to beast. And sure enough, it did. You can see that it broke out of this range up here. Enough to talk about the past, right? So I think most of you are like, great, thank you for sharing all that. We knew that this is all history. I don't care what it matters to me, because I get to learn a lot of things from it. And I love this stock. I mean, I think this is a great company. If you want me to talk about the fundamentals, I'm not going to be as eloquent as a lot of guys out there, but I know enough that I believe in it. And looking at the price action, looking at the technical analysis actually gives me even more conviction on this stock. The last week was the highest volume traded of this stock ever, and it was green. And it had a breakout from the RSI perspective, and it had a breakout of this horizontal zone, and also this volume shelf right here. This was a huge breakout. The breakout, most likely because of the crazy volume that it had, is the highest volume it has ever had. The breakout right here, most likely it might consolidate a little bit sideways underneath this volume shelf, but I think ultimately it's going to break through. Looking at a very similar situation, looking at TSM with a very similar chart, you can see that these two stocks kind of have very similar personality. It kind of ranged sideways, and then it broke out in very, very high volume. The volume did decrease a little bit, did consolidate a little bit here at the volume shelf, and then ultimately it broke off. And I think same thing here. There's a little bit of RSI breakout here. I think Palantir probably is going to do the same thing. It might consolidate here for a few weeks, but the volume here is high enough. It really makes me think that it's going to break out. Now, short-term prices, I don't know. Could it actually go down to like 21 and retest that level? Possible, right? I mean, short-term, anything can happen. I'm not a great predictor when it comes to that kind of thing. I usually look at more like weekly charts, because generally the win rate of looking at higher time frame generally is better. You just have to have a little bit more patience. I think it's probably going to end up ranging here a little bit and probably going to break out based on what I'm looking at. The other thing I want to kind of show you is that if you look at the RSI, it is very important to look at a range here around 50. If the price is about 50, generally the trend still looks relatively bullish, but if it breaks down, that's when it looks, kind of bearish. So for example, you can see that even though it's not really going anywhere, it was still kind of making a little bit of a higher low over here, even though the RSI just keeps on staying here. It's because it's about 50, it tends to give you a little bit more, of a bullishness look, even though it's obviously starting to roll over, and so was the RSI, right? But down here, you can see the RSI kept on, starting to go up a little bit and go up, 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 up. But even if the RSI goes up, you can still have price go down just because it's under 50. And as soon as it bounced above 50, even though it kept on going down, price tends to stay up, right? And because of this huge RSI trendline breakout, even if it goes down, I still think the price has more room to go up. Another thing to look at it here too is that it's right at the volume shelf, right around here. And if it breaks out of this volume shelf, there really isn't much volume shelves left. Most of the history price was over here at this range right here, was at this volume shelf over here. So if it's able to break out the volume shelf, you're really talking about some crazy price exploration. You really have to start going to different Fibonacci levels to try to predict price after that. And if you look and try to guess as to how far Palantir can go, nobody really knows, right? I happen to think that it could hit some of these crazy all-time highs here. It could get to even 1.618 or 2.618 levels. I think it's just going to take years to play out. I don't think it's going to happen tomorrow. I don't think it's going to happen in 2025. If it does, I'll be very pleasantly surprised. I think it's going to take years for it to happen, but I think Palantir, with 70% commercial growth, I mean, that's ridiculous. I really think that there's a good chance that this could keep on going up and up and up over this decade. And there's a good chance it could potentially hit 1.618, which is around $69. And it could potentially hit 2.618, which is around, over $100. These are not unrealistic expectations for a company that's growing this fast, that's having this moat. Basically, don't worry about this. This is just a way to show you is the Ichimoku cloud. It gives you these red and blue lines, and when there's a bullish cross, kind of like how it did with the stock Alta Beauty. This is mostly to kind of illustrate to you that this is possible. Alta Beauty is a beauty store. It's there. I suppose it's there supposed to be changing the world too, but it became massive since the Great Financial Crisis. It went down like crazy and it bounced up like crazy. It had a bullish cross over here and it just kept going up and up and up. And it busted through the 1.618 level, came back, retested a few times and kept going, busted through the 2.618 level and ended up hugging it for a while. Went up to test the 4.2386 level, came back down, tested, and it just kept on going up. I think there's a good chance that Palantir could also go on something crazy like this over the years to come. I don't know. I'm just a cat. I'm just guessing. But I really think that this is entirely possible. Now, I just want to end with this. Nobody really knows what's going to happen. I'm going to stop buying this stock below the price of $21, just because I think as it keeps on going, there's always a risk for it to come down, and I just don't want to take the risk. I want to identify other opportunities. I'll keep sharing with you what other opportunities I'm looking at are. But I really think that this has a pretty long runway to go for years to come, and I'm very happy to be a shareholder right now. I don't plan on selling Palantir anytime soon. Close the 20-minute mark. I think I did pretty good. I'm going to let you go. Bye.